Hi, good evening, guys. My name is Simon Plazolles-Hayes, and for those who don't know me, I am a postgraduate student here at Queen Mary. I'm also a U.S. Army veteran, I'm an entrepreneur, and I'm an animal rights advocate. Animal rights is without a doubt one of the most important movements in our global society today. As an animal rights advocate, I've spoken with thousands of people about my views on animals. And let me sum up my views today. And that animals are not ours. They're not ours to eat. They're not ours to wear. They're not ours to use. Their life and their interests are unique and personal to them. And that should be respected, and animals should be protected. This afternoon, I went to the canteen to order my lunch. And the price of the vegan lunch was comparable to the price of the meat lunch. But it was really only the cost of the meal that was the same. It wasn't actually the price. And so I ask you today, what is the price of your lunch? You know, if you're sitting here tonight and you eat meat, if you eat fish, if you eat dairy, if you eat honey or eggs, do you know what must happen to these animals to provide you with their products? I did a demo earlier this year called the Cube of Truth. Now, the way that the Cube of Truth works is that activists form a cube, and using tablets or laptops or TVs, they air documentary footage of animals in factory farms and on slaughterhouses. This form of activism is not meant to shock, but it is intended to bring the reality of animal agriculture to the high street, a place that certainly wants to distance itself from the reality of the inside of a slaughterhouse. A passerby saw the footage and was so angry about what she saw that she attacked one of my fellow activists. She stole his iPad and attempted to destroy it in order to stop the image and in order to stop our message. She was so angry that we were showing this video that she attacked us rather than join us. The reality is that a lot of people accuse vegans of being shocking or upsetting. But I must point out that the anger is genuine, but it's misdirected to the wrong people. Because vegans do not keep animals in cages. Vegans do not deprive animals of sunlight. Vegans do not deprive animals of the freedom of movement and fresh air. Vegans do not burn animal skin with red-hot branding irons. Vegans do not amputate animals' teeth, tails, and testicles without the use of an anesthetic. Vegans don't create life for the purpose of subjecting them to untold cruelty on farms or to the ultimate horrors of a slaughterhouse. Vegans don't force animals to experience the long queue towards death, while the animal is fully immersed in the sounds and the smells and in the sights, as each animal in front of them has holes blown through their skulls, has their throats slashed, or are gassed, or bashed, or macerated, until finally it's that animal's turn. So when you hear farmers or meat eaters say that vegans or that veganism is extreme, remember to ask yourself, who is holding the sign and who is holding the knife? Now, we all have a right to be angry or disgusted at hearing about the treatment of animals. The stories and the footage, it disgusts and it shocks me too. Animals are sentient and they are emotional beings. They have the capacity to feel happiness and sadness, anxiety and surprise, disgust and fear. But just how many animals are we talking about? Now, does anyone actually know how many animals are killed yearly in a slaughterhouse?
56 billion.
Higher than that.
60?
Higher than that.
70.
Little lower than that, but maybe in a few
65?
years, unfortunately. Yes. According to The Economist, 65 billion animals are killed yearly in slaughterhouses for humans. This number, it does not include the number of animals who are killed or die before the slaughterhouse. It does not include the animals killed for medical experiments, or for clothing, or for human entertainment. And it does not include the nearly 2.7 trillion fish killed annually. Now, I want to put that into perspective. As you know, last Sunday was Remembrance Sunday. In 1914 to 1918, 65 million humans lost their lives in World War I. In World War II, it was 80 million humans. The Soviet Union, under Stalin's control, was 20 million humans. The entire Mongol conquest killed 40 million humans. And the result of the Great Chinese Famine left 40 million humans dead. That's a total of 245 million human deaths. And that total amounts to 33 hours of animal deaths in a single year. Let me say that again. The combined total human casualties of the First and the Second World War, the Great Chinese Famine, Stalin's control of the Soviet Union, the entire Mongol conquest, and the Great Chinese Famine put together is the equivalent of just 33 hours of farm animals' deaths in slaughterhouses on planet Earth, with a remainder of 8,727 hours of pain, terror, violence, and death left. So I'll ask again, what is the price of your lunch? Unfortunately, the consistent global abuse of animals continues. And the reality of the abuse and the scale and violence and death is covered up. We are removed from statistics and reality, and would rather continue to live a life of blissful ignorance and accept the clever industry marketing than address the massive inequality and brutality of the animal agriculture industry. But the reality is that animal agriculture and the consumption of animal products isn't just bad for the animals. It's incredibly destructive to the planet that we call home. Earlier this year, Hurricane Florence devastated the eastern United States, and North Carolina in particular. Now, North Carolina is one of the top pig producers in the United States. As people fled, they left their farms and the animals still in them, because it's easier to collect an insurance check than it is to try to protect the animals that they claim to care about. The total destruction of Hurricane Florence on these animals was great. Over 5,500 pigs and 3.4 million chickens drowned. In no way do I want to overlook the fear and the terror that those animals experienced as they slowly died from drowning. But I want to discuss the environmental ramifications of keeping massive amounts of animals on factory farms. And I actually want to discuss something that's rarely talked about, and that's animal waste. See, modern human waste management uses water treatment and modern sanitation to be able to filter, clean, and reuse the water. Modern farms, they dump them into lagoons, into lakes, into the ocean, or simply into giant piles of animal excrement and waste and remains. And so what happened as the water from Hurricane Florence rose is these giant lakes of animal fecal material rose too. And just one of the swine waste lagoons released over 8,327,906 liters of water of waste into the local environment during the floods. Now, there's a name for what happens when animal waste interacts with bodies of water, and the name of that is called eutrophication. Eutrophication is the process when bodies of water are excessively filled with nutrients, and it causes algae bloom and the depletion of oxygen in the water. This damages the fragile ecosystem and leads to the death of marine life and local flora and fauna. But it isn't just eutrophication that we should be concerned about. Our reliance on animal agriculture is causing the 6th greatest mass extinction. And the last mass extinction came in the form of an asteroid that wiped out the dinosaurs. We have killed off many natural predators to breed 70 billion farm animals, and a reminder of which 65 billion will die annually. The billions of animals that are suffering on these farms are inadvertently creating our mutual doom. Animal agriculture is the biggest contributor to climate change, period. The United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization discovered that animal agriculture is responsible for more greenhouse emissions than the entire world's transportation emissions combined. Animal agriculture is the leading cause of desertification, deforestation, ocean dead zones, and species extinction. Now, I think that we've all here tried our hand at going green, right? We say that we're no longer going to use straws, or we're going to use reusable carrier bags, or maybe we're taking shorter showers. In fact, DEFRA, which is the Department of Environment, Food and Rural Affairs here in the UK, says that if you just cut down your shower by up to 1 minute, you can save 11 liters of water. That's a lot of savings, right? But in the United States, the Environmental Protection Agency says that if you don't eat that cheeseburger, you can save 3,000 liters of water. The Institute of Mechanical Engineers discovered that a single kilo of beef takes 15,415 liters of water to produce, and nearly 6,000 to produce an entire kilo of pork. 100 grams of beef generates 105 kilograms of greenhouse gases, compared to just 3.5 kilograms of greenhouse gases per 100 grams of soy. Equally, 1 kilo of soy only requires 184 liters of water. According to the USDA Economic Research Survey, the top 10 most polluting foods on Earth are all meat products, except for one. Any guesses? No guesses. That's all right. The only vegetable, the only plant-based product that's among the list of the 10 most polluting foods is asparagus. And the only reason why is because of the air miles required to fly it around the world from Latin America. A groundbreaking report by the University of Oxford earlier this year said if you want to reduce your impact on Earth, you must cut out meat and dairy. We understand that climate change is one of the greatest threats facing our survival and our planet. We must address it, and we must stop the effects now before we are too late. You cannot eat meat and call yourself an environmentalist. So with the knowledge that animal products does untold damage to our planet, I ask again, what is the price of your lunch? Now, I have never been able to meet anyone who can present a credible argument in defense of the ethics of animal rearing and slaughter. To even overlook the rampant abuse of animals in this country and abroad, even in the best case scenario, you kill something that does not want to die for a purpose that is unnecessary. The evidence shows that animal agriculture is not only unsustainable, but it is a global threat to our environment. But there must be some reason why we can't stop eating meat. It must be necessary for our health and our survival, right? But is that true? Is that actually true? A lot of people, when they try to argue in defense of their meat, they point to their teeth, their canine teeth. But is that actually proof that we are in fact these carnivorous meat-eating machines? Do you know who else has canine teeth? Goats, horses, cows even have canine teeth. Now, I want you to compare your human canines to the canines of a cat, of a dog, of a lion, and tell yourself, are they really the same? No, they're not. On top of it, if you're going to use human dental anatomy to justify your meat consumption, I should point out that humans have molars, something very distinct from most carnivores, because carnivores' mouths chomp and ours chomp and grind. We are not natural carnivores. But we can still eat meat, right? Unfortunately, the truth is that meat is extremely detrimental to our health. The World Health Organization in 2015 added red meats and processed meats to Group 1 carcinogens in the same category as asbestos and cigarettes, meaning that they increase the risk of cancer. A journal in the American Heart Association has linked eating red meat with an increased risk of stroke. The British Medical Journal has linked all types of meat consumption to an increase in blood pressure. And a study from the Journal of American Medical Association concluded that people who eat more animal protein have a 35% higher risk of contracting type 2 diabetes than those who eat plant protein. A study conducted by the Harvard School of Health, supported by the National Institute of Health's National Heart, Lung, and Blood Institute, the National Cancer Institute, and the National Institute of Diabetes and Digestive and Kidney Diseases, discovered in a rigorous study that one additional serving of red meat increases the risk of total mortality by 13%, and one more serving of processed meats increases the risk of mortality by 20%. Now, my friends, this is very serious. While you may say that meat consumption is a personal choice, we are being denied the impact that it causes not only to our health, but on the health of our family and on our children. Not only will meat consumption increase your risk of preventable death, but there is a very dangerous future coming that will affect all of us, regardless of whether or not we eat meat. Now, many people don't realize that animals, just like us, get sick, that they get diseases, particularly in factory farms. With so many animals crammed into a small area, disease and infection spreads quickly. It's no wonder then that 45% of all antibiotics used in the UK are used on farms. And what has happened is that it has created resistant bacteria that can beat our defenses of vaccinations and antibiotics. To top it off, these antibiotics that are being used on farms are being administered through the animal's water supply, which can leak into the local environment, allowing for the spread of these resistant pathogens. The National Institute of Health says that in the US alone, in a year, over 23,000 people will die as a result of resistant bacteria, and a further 2 million will become infected. Now, I say again, my friends, that this is a grave threat to humanity. Our commitment and our desire to have this endless supply of meat is killing us. But more than that, it has the capacity to create a pandemic, one we may not be able to defend against. Our desire to flex personal choice and domination over our fellow earthlings, we are creating our own trapdoor, and we may not be able to catch ourselves. So I ask you again, what is the price of your lunch? Last month, the editor for Waitrose magazine was forced to resign for his comments that he sent in an email. He suggested that vegans should be killed one by one, as well as being imprisoned and tortured by being force-fed meat. His resignation proved controversial, and in the aftermath, I read an editorial in response to his termination. And the author had said that more meat eaters in society should stand up against these vegans and defend their views. I want to make something perfectly clear to everyone here today. And that is, I am a strong believer and supporter of freedom of speech and freedom of expression. I believe in supporting your right to defend your views on meat. We are all entitled to a viewpoint, and we should all have the freedom to express our opinions. I believe that if you want to defend eating animals, you should do so. But you need to remember this. Advocacy of meat consumption and animal use means always defending the cruelty, the violence, the devastation, the detrimental impact that animal agriculture causes not only on the animals themselves, but also on humans and on the environment. If you choose to defend meat, you will always have to defend the cages. You will always have to defend the slaughterhouses, the deaths, the environmental destruction, and the preventable causes of human death. Your argument of, I want it, and I've always done it, it will be met with science and logic and ethics. Making a change can be difficult. I understand that. And we can find ourselves so set in our ways that we don't want to change. But change is possible. But not only that, change is necessary. I grew up on a farm. I ate meat. I fished and I hunted. I showed animals for 4-H projects, and I helped kill animals. I grew up on the complete other side of my argument here tonight. It wasn't until my time in the service that I came to an epiphany that made me question the logic and the ethics of animal use and consumption. And I found that even I couldn't defend my own actions. I don't believe that people who eat meat or farm animals are necessarily bad people. The majority of us grew up either believing that animals existed for our own purposes or didn't even consider the ethical dilemma of animal agriculture and the treatment of animals and the extent of it. The animal agriculture industry has certainly pulled the cotton over our eyes, and we have been made to believe that the animals in their care are well treated, and never made the connection between the animals that we may see on a farm and the nicely wrapped packages of meat at the supermarket. But we must embrace the notion and the reality that humans are fallible and that we are prone to cruelty. But as much as we are prone to cruelty, we are also prone to compassion, to community, to the belief of equality.